Attention, you're listening to the Todd Huff Radio Show, America's home for conservative, not bitter talk radio. Be advised that the content of this program has been documented to prevent and even cure liberalism, and listening may cause you to lean to the right. Here's your conservative, but not bitter host, Todd Huff.
Well, my friends, this Autopen scandal is turning into an absolutely unbelievable, I guess in one way unbelievable, in another way totally expected debacle that happened, apparently, ostensibly, under the Biden regime. And I want to talk about that today. It is just the place that they led us, the place that the decision makers in the radical left, the power brokers in the Democrat Party, where they led us, this nation, intentionally, I might add, is unbelievable. And there is a story out there, or I guess a piece, an article, that someone is actually echoing what I've been saying on this program a long time, is that this guy Biden, the story is not that they simply hid his condition from us up until, well, hopefully through the 2024 election. That's not the full story, friends. They actually pushed somebody into office who was never fit to begin with. Never fit to begin with. They knew this. This wasn't something that popped up and they tried to troubleshoot at the last minute. They knew 100% what they were getting into in 2020, and it has led to a whole bunch of questions, including legalities and Autopens, and who's actually making decisions for this country, who's to be held accountable for those decisions. I want to get into that, my friends, as the program comes together today. Freedom Marketplace, my friends, you know that's something that we've created here at the Todd Huff Show. We actually, to give you a little bit of history, as we've been growing the program, initially we were putting our advertisers on our website, putting their logo there. And we got to the point to where we had enough advertisers to where I thought this, it's kind of like if you try to tell somebody everything, you end up telling somebody nothing, because it's just information overload and they don't hear anything. And so part of communication is figuring out what we need to communicate quickly and clearly, and then move on to the other stuff, which may be important, but you move on to that for another day. Some things are learned over time, and so that's kind of what happened to the website. And so I realized, hey, for people to see who our advertisers are on the site, we're going to have to create a directory that lets, searchable database instead of just a list of logos. And in the process of doing that, I thought, you know what? We could actually turn this into a marketplace, not just of our radio advertisers, but for people who want to be associated with the program and who want to be associated with the marketplace, where they can speak to, communicate with conservatives out there who care about spending their money in places that are pushing in the same direction for this country that they are. And so that's where Freedom Marketplace was born, and now you can go and check it out at freedommarketplace.net. You can find liberty and business for all, my friends. It's free. Check it out, freedommarketplace.net. All right, let's talk about this Autopen debacle. Where do I want to start? Where do I want to start? I'm going to mention this off the top. This is at thefederalist.com. Biden was never fit for office to begin with. This is in the stack of stuff. I don't want to talk about this for long because I've talked about this on our program a whole lot. And I'm just going to, I guess, really briefly summarize because, again, we've got new. By the way, Todd Talk picked up on a new station today. The show is looking at a station as well. We're always looking to expand and reach more people. So if you're hearing my voice for the first time, I just welcome. But this is a summary for those of you that have been part of this program for a while. You've heard this before, but you go back to 2020, and the primary process for the Democrats, they knew that they were on a collision course. They were on a collision course where they were going to have a contested convention. It was very possible because they had a lot of candidates. They all stunk, but they had a lot of candidates. And they knew that no one was going, they predicted, they actually did. Somebody there could do math. It doesn't seem like someone could do math because of the financial economic policies that they've put forth in the Democrat Party. But someone got the calculator out and said, wait a minute, if we continue on this trajectory, no one is going to have enough delegates in the convention at the convention time in order for us to have a clear winner to be the nominee for President of the United States in July or August or whenever it was back in 2016 or 2020, I should say. And so the Democrat Party power brokers, and make no mistake about this, for people who think that all of the elites are in the Republican Party, get a life. Get a grip on reality. The self-righteous, elite, liberal lunatics got together, the ones who run the party, the one who, the millionaires and billionaires, as we say, they got together and they said, look, we can't have this guy Bernie Sanders out there. This guy can't win. This guy's an embarrassment. This guy might actually even come after me and my business more than the average Democrat. Or maybe some of them are socialists and they say, we're just not there yet. We can't have Bernie running the show. This isn't he's not going to have a chance to win. And so they decided that they're going to throw all their energies behind Biden, and so they called other people in the campaign. I've gone through this. Buttigieg, Amy Klobuchar, Pocahontas, who, by the way, I can say that as the genealogically proven 13th great-grandson of Pocahontas, and as such, the self-appointed spokesperson of the family. But Pocahontas, she got the memo late. She actually stayed in the race a little bit longer than the others. But the idea was basically, hey, you guys get out. We'll take care of you. There'll be paybacks in the future, but we just can't let Bernie win. Eventually, they all got the notice, and Biden was able to secure the nomination without a contested election. But at that time, these party power brokers 100% knew. I am telling you with as much certainty as I can muster, my friends, that I have in my brain and in my body, in my spirit, I am certain that they knew of his condition in 2020. And they decided to do this anyway. They decided it didn't matter if there was going to be an Autopen in the future, granting pardons for people that Biden had no idea were on the list of pardons. They didn't care, my friends, that you were going to have a president one day who was going to be presiding over this nation as a war was breaking out on his watch between Russia and Ukraine, or that Hamas was going to invade Israel. They didn't care. They didn't care about any of those ramifications. They calculated it, and they thought the media is going to help protect this guy. We're going to have plausible deniability, full speed ahead. But they knew it. Make no mistake. These people do not care about you, my friends. I'm going to take it a step further. I read this morning when I was doing my show prep, and I read somewhere that these people hate you. And that's the better way of saying it. It's not enough to say that they don't care about you and how it impacts you. That's true. But what's even more accurate is that they hate you. They despise you. They think you, these radical, self-righteous, elitist, leftists, believe that you are garbage, that I am garbage, and that they are to be, that they're God's gift to humanity and to planet Earth. They do not care. They hate you. They don't care what electing this guy did to this country. They do not care. They truly do not care. And so here we are. So this article, which I'm not going to get into, it's in the stack of stuff if you want to read it. But as he says, as the article is entitled here, Biden was never fit for office to begin with, and he wasn't. So the story isn't just that he got bad during his first term in office, his only term, thankfully, and no one really saw this coming. That is false. That is incorrect. That is not true. That is fake news. They 100% knew. Now, so that's the frame of reference we need to see this through. Now, let us look at what we have learned even in the past few days. About Biden's Autopen scandal. Now let's talk, I guess before we get too far into the details, let's talk about this because this is what the left likes to do. They are masters, the media, they are masters at deceit and at conflating things, right? Conflating meaning mixing things up and making one set of circumstances look like it's another set of circumstances. Confusing the story, the narrative, what's really happening, so as to avoid having to deal with the full weight of the consequences of some of these obvious problems, right? They still, listen, they don't care about defending Biden anymore. They care about defending their reputation. And at some point, they're going to have to do that. Why did you tell us Biden was totally fit? Why, Karine Jean-Pierre, did you tell us from the podium that it was basically an intimidating task to walk into the Oval Office because Biden was going to be peppering you with questions, rapid-fire questions that you just couldn't keep up with? Why did you insist on telling us that this man was the sharpest man that you've ever seen in your life? Basically, why were you doing these things? Because you clearly knew that that's not what the case was. And so they're not here really anymore to defend Biden. They don't care. He can't do anything for them. He's out of power. The allure of being close and connected with that family is no longer there. And so they don't care. They don't care about defending him, but they care about their reputation. They care about the Democrat Party. They care about the implications of this sort of stuff in 2028 and beyond. I mean, you think about the overall state of the Democrat Party. It is something to behold, my friends. I mean, they are out there calling ICE agents members of the Gestapo. They are defending and encouraging, in some instances, the use of violence against ICE. I've seen this on MSNBC. I shared that briefly yesterday. That's in the stack of stuff from yesterday on our website. It might be in there today as well. I don't know if I copied that one over for today, but that's out there. They're defending... They defended Biden's economy. They're attacking Trump's economy. They lied to you about Medicaid being destroyed for people who legitimately should have it. They've lied about so many things, defending Biden's economy, defending what led to inflation rates approaching 10%. Now Trump's core inflation. Have you seen his core inflation rates? If you take out food and energy, I believe, it's at 0.2, 0.3. I mean, this is remarkable progress. You have CEOs out there. Home Depot's CEO, who was very critical of Trump, saying he didn't want to vote for Trump. I don't believe he did vote for Trump. Who now out there is talking about how brilliant Trump is. I've got that in the stack of stuff as well. The Democrats have no spokesperson. The closest thing they have to a spokesperson in their party is the lunatics like AOC and Jasmine Crockett, who, I mean, is just a mess. These members of the modern, what do they call themselves? The squad, I guess. It's not good stuff. I mean, this is bad ideas, bad behavior. It certainly gets applause from certain corners of the Democrat Party because they think that this is tough stuff, but it is a joke to people with brains and who realize what really is at stake here when you put people like that in political power. People who believe the government should be bigger, that your taxes should be higher, that the Constitution needs to be changed to do all sorts of the left's dirty work. So they're a mess is the bottom line. And they know they're a mess. And now on top of all of that, they have to deal with the reality that these pardons that Biden issued with the Autopen, that Biden's administration issued with the Autopen, might have been given without his approval. Here's another Federalist article. Multiple pardons granted by Autopen without Biden approving recipients, staff admits. So Biden's staff admitted, this was in a Sunday report in the New York Times, released by the New York Times. It showed that multiple people on Biden's team said that the pardons handed out in the final weeks of Biden's presidency were signed by an Autopen, some lacking Biden's final authorization. Now, Biden was actually interviewed for this article. I don't know if you've read any of the excerpts of this. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. I mean, Biden is absolutely incoherent. Going back to this article, though, the Federalist, the article titled, Biden says he made the clemency decisions that were recorded with Autopen, seemingly tries to dispel claims by President Donald Trump and his allies that Joseph Robinette Biden Jr. was incapacitated and his staff conspired to take presidential actions in his name. Yes, that's the problem. See, and this is, pause for a moment, because there's an article out there by NBC, MSNBC, which one? It's the same group ultimately. Here it is. NBC News, and this is, I'm reading from the Blaze. I'm trying to find, here it is. Here's the actual article. So NBC News is trying to defend this, right? They're trying to defend this. Lead investigator, that's James Comer, representative from Kentucky, into Biden's use of an Autopen signed letters with the digital signature. So what they're saying is, look, Comer's out here investigating Biden using this Autopen. Comer, when he was signing the documents pertaining to the investigation, he used a digital signature, like something you would use on DocuSign. So these are the same things. This is hypocritical. He's going after Biden for using an Autopen, for using a digital signature. They're trying to conflate all this together, right? But pause for a moment. Context, as you well know, is king, as you know from living your life, and as you know from listening to this program. These two things are not similar. The issue isn't the fact that there's a digital signature or the use of an Autopen. What is the problem is who authorized said signature, who authorized the use of the Autopen in Biden's case. And in the case of Comer here, did he actually authorize the use of his digital signature? If he did, if either one of those gentlemen did, then that's fine. No one's disputing that you can't use an Autopen or a digital signature or something like that. The issue is whether or not you can have the signature used without your consent. That's an obvious no. The signature, back when signatures were, handwritten, sitting at the desk, the idea was that I approve what's in this document. So I'm going to take I'm going to write my name in, my handwriting, and it's going to be akin to me doing a handshake with the document. I'm in agreement with it. I've endorsed it. It's my seal, right? Back in Old Testament times in the Bible. In fact, I'm going through Genesis right now again. You would find Pharaoh gave Joseph his signet ring, and he basically could sign on behalf. He was an authorized agent for Pharaoh to do certain business. He had a ring that was tied specifically to Pharaoh. They would apply wax to a document or whatever, and he would press the seal into it. That would be the akin to a signature today. Joseph was an authorized agent for Pharaoh and was empowered to do certain things. But there are certain things that have to be made. Decisions have to be made at the top by the ultimate decision maker, the chief executive in the case of this country, and his signature has to be on something. His signature not only has to be there, he has to be the one who okayed it to be placed there. That is the issue, my friends. That is the issue. So I want to go into this a little bit more. I want to show you how ridiculous NBC News is, trying to head fake you into believing the issue is just over using an Autopen or some sort of a digital signature. That's not the issue. The issue is who is authorizing said use of the digital signature or the Autopen signature. Friends, you know that we have launched here, I've shared with you, Red, White, and Brand. It is a new arm of the Todd Huff Show. It's actually something that I did years ago before I started this program. Promotional products, apparel, apparel, anything with your logo on it, trade show booths, banners, pop-up banners, promotional products, incentives, awards, you name it, my friends. Red, White, and Brand is where you can go to learn a little bit more about some of the things that we can put your logo on. And if you use my name, Todd, during the checkout process, you're going to get 10% off. And if you place the order online, you'll get free shipping as well. Red, White, and Brand.com. Promo code Todd. Again, get you those savings. Red, White, and Brand.com. Your logo, my friends, on almost anything. Okay. So, NBC wants you to believe that the issue is using the digital signature. I'm going to read you a bit of the digital signature and the Autopen are not the same thing, but there's a common concept behind them. There's a signature that's applied that's not directly written in the physical hand of the person, but it's been authorized and it's legitimate because of its authorization. That's kind of the thinking behind these, the commonalities here. But the article here at NBC News says James Comer has been leading the probe into Joe Biden's cognitive state during his presidency, with Republicans alleging that Biden's occasional use of an Autopen to sign documents, a practice other presidents have done as well, demonstrated he wasn't fully in control or aware of what his administration was doing. This is false. This is not the allegation. This isn't saying because you use the Autopen, that's a sign that you weren't fully in control. It's a means by which they were using because Biden wasn't in control. It's not in itself the evidence. It is the fact. It's what they did. It's a step that they took because the president wasn't in control of his faculties. I'm long in the segment. That's why I'm distracted here. Quick timeout. Be back here, my friends, in just a minute. Welcome back, my friends. So I've been talking here about how NBC News is trying to conflate the issue of the Autopen. I'm trying to explain what the real issue is. This is obvious to anybody who truly cares to understand. It just takes a moment to understand the problem. The problem isn't that we saw Biden, or the Republicans saw Biden using the Autopen, and they're trying to make some headlines about this because he used the Autopen. No, that's not the problem at all. The problem is that they noticed everything else about Biden and his cognitive state. The problem is that we all know that we had a president in the White House who had no idea what was going on. The problem is that the media hid this from us. No matter what Jake Tapper and the other co-author of that book, Alex something or other, these media types, these make-believe journalists, Alex Thompson, I think is his name, whatever they want you to believe. They want you to believe now that they figured out that Biden was a lot worse cognitively than we were being told. They act like that's some sort of a breaking news alert. But in reality, my friends, they hid this from us. They had no interest whatsoever in learning, in exposing the true state of Joseph Robinette bribery. And they would say, look, the people at the White House told us he was great. What are we supposed to do? It's almost like you weren't paying attention to his presidency. It's almost like you weren't being critical of the things that was happening as he was face planting on stages and tipping over on stationary bicycles. It's almost as though you had no concern when the guy forgot where he was, or he had to be pointed to stand over the X at some event, or he wandered off into the background at some G7 summit or whatever it was. It's almost like, maybe that was at NATO, I don't remember, it was some international leaders convention, and he wandered off into the sunset. I mean, it is amazing. It's amazing how these journalists have no make-believe journalists have no curiosity about any of this stuff. None whatsoever. Well, they told us he was fine. The doctor said he was great. Now we got the doctor pleading the fifth in a congressional hearing. He pleads the fifth. Why do you think he's pleading the fifth? What's going on in there behind closed doors? They all knew, my friends, and they kept it hidden from you and from me. Now, they didn't. They didn't do a very good job, because turns out at some point as president of the United States, no matter how many days you wrap up by 2 in the afternoon or 4 in the afternoon or whatever, turns out that you have to actually put the president out there. And in the limited time he was out there, we saw a whole lot of things that should have caused us to have extreme alarm. I talked about this in the election. I was in the minority on this. I remember Vivek Ramaswamy telling us in the weeks leading up to the election, a month or so out, maybe 2 months, he said, we don't want to talk about replacing Biden now because we don't want to put Kamala in office as president and then have to run against the incumbent. I got that part. I understand the ramifications, but I'm like, am I the only one that cares that our nation has to be led by somebody who is aware of what's going on? And right now, none of us knew who that person was. This was back in the days leading up to the election in 2024. And, of course, from the time Trump got elected until the end of Biden's campaign, I remember asking that question on this program then. Who's running the country in November and December and January? Who's running the country? It turns out we're starting to get questions, or answers, I should say, to these questions. In fact, there's reports out there that say that an aide is the one that was approving some of these things that the Autopen was being used for. There's been a lot of speculation about who was involved. We remember the chief of staff for Dr. Jill Biden. He was rumored to be the one making some decisions. Who knows? I don't know that we will ever know. But the issue here is not that Biden was using an Autopen. We don't just want to say, well, Comer can use a digital signature. Why can't Biden use an Autopen? The problem wasn't Biden using an Autopen or whatever is permissible that passes as a signature. The problem was he giving authorization? Was he aware? NBC News acts as though by using James Comer using a digital signature, he's being a hypocrite for questioning Biden's use of the Autopen. The article continues here, but documents show some of the letters and subpoena notices Comer has sent out in connection to his investigation have been signed using a digital signature, not written by the congressman himself. Trump and his allies have repeatedly pushed the Autopen theory to undermine Biden and his policies. In June, Trump ordered an investigation into the matter and said it was one of the most dangerous and concerning scandals in American history. Biden denied the allegations, calling them ridiculous and false. Probably inserting a lot of uhs and in there as well. Comer's committee has taken up Trump's push in Congress. He has sent 16 letters to former Biden White House officials requesting transcribed interviews. In all 16 of those letters, metadata reveals his signature was a digital picture inserted into the letter. This is so stupid. Who cares? This is not... Did Comer authorize the signature? That's the question. Did Comer authorize it? If he did, then let's compare that to whether Biden authorized it. Because they're admitting in Biden's camp he wasn't authorizing everything. They have admitted this. Again, going back to an article that I referenced earlier at the Federalist, multiple pardons granted by Autopen without Biden approving recipients, staff admit. So apparently this was a late in the term, late night thing. They had gone through a list. They had set some criteria for who would be receiving pardons. And apparently Biden, I don't know, went to sleep. That's probably the safest bet. Was doing something else, whatever. And they had to make the folks involved that were not Biden had to then say, who does this criteria apply to? Because the list changed. I don't know how the list changed. I don't know if it mentions specific names. But the staff is saying the list changed, and then the list wasn't finalized with Biden's acknowledgement, Biden's approval, and they went ahead and authorized the signature anyway. The President of the United States is the one who can authorize, who can actually grant these pardons. It's not anybody else. You can see, surely everybody can see the problem here, right? The problem here, this is not even like acting in a sort of State Department sort of way with the foreign country, like Secretary of State, right? This isn't even acting. This is different than representing the nation and the administration as Secretary of State, right? This is different. This is the decision that has to be ultimately made by the president. You can't have a bunch of people just pardoning whoever they want and then running it through the Autopen. I mean, surely to goodness we can see the problem with this. Surely we can see how this could lead to absolute anarchy and chaos. Just get access to the Autopen and do whatever you want. Thankfully, they had to at least pass some things through Congress. Otherwise, who knows what these knuckleheads would have been simply signing into existence. We elect a president. We, the people, elect a president. He is the person, she is the person that is accountable to the American people. If he's not making the decisions, then who are we holding accountable? The left talks all day about democracy and protecting our democracy. This seems to go more to the core of defending our democracy than anything the left tells us they're fighting. So where are they on this one? Is it because the guy who was asleep at the wheel was a Democrat? It's absolutely the case. Otherwise, if you just said the facts without naming people and party affiliation and all that sort of stuff, people would say this is completely not the way that this should function. But Democrats don't care. They have no interest in this because it's politics over country, my friends, for the radical left. Let's talk about something else that is very important, my friends. That's your money. You worked hard for your money, but is it working hard for what you believe in? At 48 Financial, they specialize in biblically responsible investing. That means they screen out companies that do not align with your faith and your values, and they'll help you create a plan that fits your goals and purpose. The best part is that they can actually take your current investments and through a little short assessment that you can take, they can help you see how those investments stack up with or against your values. So visit 48financial.com/Todd. That's where you can go to fill out that assessment to find out if your investments, your current investments, are supporting the causes that you want them to support, or if they're supporting the things you're vehemently against, which is the case in many instances. 48financial.com/Todd. 48 Financial, helping you align your money with your mission. Folks, I got to take a break. Back here in just a minute. Welcome back, my friends. Final segment of the program today. Time flies when you're having fun. Friends, really quickly, if you want to continue to stay healthy so that you can continue having fun, continue living your life, doing the things you like to do as best you can, consider taking Salty. It's an all-natural product that science has spoken on that is good for your heart. It is good for your heart. Science has spoken on this. It has been scientifically proven to lower cholesterol for folks. It may be able to do the same for you as well. I take the product. You can as well. It's safe. It's not a drug. All you have to do is take 2 Salty soft gels a day and watch your cholesterol drop. Friends, the only thing you have to lose is high cholesterol numbers. So, Soltea.com, that's where you go, SOLTEA. Promo code Todd will get you 50% off your first order. It's already very affordable, and it's even super affordable with the discount code. And you can get free shipping on top of that as well. Soltea.com, SOLTEA, promo code Todd, get you the free shipping and 50% off your first order. I'm going to go back to this article here. It's remarkable. It truly is. In a brief phone interview with the Times, Biden insisted, "I made every decision," and according to the Times, asserted that he had his staff use an Autopen replicating his signature on the clemency warrants because we're talking about a whole lot of people. The Times claims internal emails show that the Biden White House had a process to establish that Mr. Biden had orally made decisions in meetings before the staff secretary, Stephanie Feldman, who managed the use of the Autopen, would have clemency records put through the signing device. But then comes the line that seemingly undercuts the entire narrative being peddled by the Times. Again, I'm reading from the Federalist.com article here. Mr. Biden did not individually approve each name for the categorical pardons that applied to large numbers of people, he and his aides confirmed. Okay, that seems like a problem. Rather, after extensive discussion of different possible criteria, he signed off on the standards. We talked about this earlier. He wanted to be used to determine which convicts would qualify for a reduction in the sentence, the Times' Charlie Savage and Tyler Pager wrote. According to the report citing an aide, however, small changes to the list kept occurring after Biden, quote, signed off. And so, rather than ask Mr. Biden to keep signing revised versions, his staff waited and then ran the final version through the Autopen, which they saw as a routine procedure. You know, if you believe that, if you're in an administration where you're making all sorts of decisions, this might seem routine. But this is not the way that this is supposed to work. This is a legitimate problem. This is a big problem for people who receive these pardons because there is a legitimate question as to their legitimacy. This is a serious problem. This isn't Republicans objecting to the use of an Autopen. This is Republicans objecting to a procedure that doesn't have the person who's supposed to be making the decisions authorizing the signing of the documents, authorizing these particular presidential pardons. This is a big, big problem. This is not some loophole. This is not some Republicans being petty sort of thing. This is, who did you elect to be president of the United States? I know that opens up a whole can of worms, but who did they tell us we elected to be president of the United States in 2020? Who was president from January 2021 through January 2025? Who's the only person who can grant pardons? Who is it? It's not even Vice President Kamala Harris. It's not even Dr. Jill. It's not a former president, Barack Obama, if he comes strolling through the White House. It's not Michelle Obama. It's not Hillary Clinton, who had the election of 2016 stolen from her, as they tell us. It's not Bill Clinton, former president, who, I just used the Oval Office for things much differently than using the Autopen. But this is, these are legitimate questions about the overall way our government is functioning. And this all stems from what we talked about at the beginning. We had people running the Democrat Party. And hear me say this. These are the same people running the party today. Now, sometimes they're behind the scenes. They don't want to be out in front, but they're the ones who are funding this machine. They are the ones who are allowing these things to happen. They're the ones that picked Biden, who they knew was unfit for office when he was chosen and coronated by them in 2020, which would have been right after the South Carolina primary and right before Super Tuesday. That's when they made that decision. It was one of the last points that they could make that decision, that they wanted Biden to be their guy, and they pressured everyone else to drop out of the race. That was the only way they could avoid a contested convention. We went through that in the first segment. They knew this. They put us through this. They created this. They are still running the party today. When you vote for the people that you're voting, if you vote Democrat, if you vote for the people put forth by the Democrat Party, and I don't know why anybody would do that listening to this program, but if you do, you're voting for the same people who are going to be making decisions through these surrogates that were responsible for bringing you Biden and this debacle, this dangerous period of time that we went through when no one was at the helm besides random staffers using the Autopen to grant clemency and who knows, do what else that only no one knows. But I've got to go. Out of time here, friends. SDG.